What do you do when you love something so much that you just can't let it go? Well, I guess you just take things into your own hands. And that's what I'm going to do with my car. So in this video, I'm finally going to start repairing my wrecked project car. And oh boy, do I have my work cut out for me. And I know you might be wondering, why fix this by yourself? How did you even end up in this situation? Well, you see, it started with my car getting wrecked a few months ago. And in my past few videos, I've been documenting the process of dealing with insurance, the heartbreak of finding out that my car was totaled, and then trying to negotiate that value high enough so it would at least make sense to be able to buy it back. But since it doesn't make any financial sense to dump that money back into the car in repairs, I'm gonna attempt to repair the car myself in my driveway with no bodywork experience whatsoever. And I mean, what could go wrong? No. Oh, God. So I've kind of been procrastinating on fixing my car because it's just kind of scary. I've never done anything like this. I do have metalworking experience, but not honestly that much. And the idea of cutting into my car is a whole other barrier to cross where it feels wrong. But obviously I really can't mess this up anymore as long as I just kind of keep my cuts to the same panel that's already shredded. I do feel like I am drastically in over my head and being way too ambitious here. But yeah, anyway, here's the setup. We got the damaged car right over here. Nothing has changed. Still the same damaged car as the past few months. I got a bunch of fireproofing like welding blankets to cover up the soft top, a little bit of the trunk if I can, and the interior, so you know, no fire. Speaking of fire, I'm wearing leather stuff, I'm wearing closed-toe shoe, I'm wearing long sleeves, I have leather gloves, I'm gonna wear a mask and eye protection and then like a whole like face shield, and I have 2 fire extinguishers and I have a hose. So I've already tested one of my fire extinguishers before, and I also showed my girlfriend how to use it, and I made sure the hose is working and connected. So there's kind of nothing left for me to do except get started. Feels weird. But anyway, here's what I'm thinking. So thank you to Moss Miata for sending this rear quarter patch panel. If you need the same part, I've got it linked in the description below. And it's not the full quarter itself, so it's not like this full panel, but it kind of goes till somewhere like here. So the thought is I'm gonna want to lay the panel on top of it to figure out where to make the cuts on both this damaged panel and the new panel to get them to line up perfectly. But in order to do that, it doesn't lay flat because this thing is here. I've already hammered it a little away, but I need to just cut this out. My plan, at least for now, is to cut any of the raised surfaces off so that I can actually lay the panel perfectly flat on top and then plan out the rest of the repair. So that means probably cutting off this piece here and then this huge piece sticking off here. Yeah. Oh, and then also fire safety. I have blown the leaves far away, so there's basically just rocks and cement here. So unlikely for anything to light on fire, but again, if it does, I got 2 fire extinguishers and a hose and some leather fireproof stuff that I can always try and stifle the fire with. So I feel a little crazy, but yeah, this is where I'm at. And so after a few months of thinking about this, stressing about it, and researching how to repair, it was finally time to make the first cuts.
I guess here goes nothing. Wild. Oh, it feels so bad to do.
It's actually been just over a year since I bought this car to learn how to work on cars, and it's crazy to me how fast I fell down that rabbit hole from just doing a little suspension work to now cutting into my car. It's crazy the journey that it's ended up taking me on, but it's been a really fulfilling one.
This is crazy.
After I slowly started to get more comfortable cutting into my car, I was surprised to find that it was actually a bit cathartic to cut out some of this messy damage, clean this up, and finally get moving on repairing this car and bringing it back to life.
So this is where we're at, which is not too bad actually. I'm trying to go pretty minimal on the cuts. I don't want to cut too far well past the patch, so I'm being really conservative to start. But what I'm basically doing here is I just cut that section nicely out so I can see if there's any other damage, which there's not really. The only two internal pieces of damage that I've noticed are obviously this, I don't know what it's called, if it's like the inner fender, was a little cut there, and so I cut off more that was kind of sticking out. So I don't know what my plan is for that. I'm thinking about maybe just trying to get some sheet metal that's the same size, like a 20 gauge or something, and see if I can kind of just patch it. I don't know. This is the one part I'm not sure. The other is there is a tiny dent here on that inner support, I think. Luckily, nothing else is crumpled. That was the big thing, would have really kind of halted my plans. So far things are actually looking pretty good, but yeah, I forgot how much I do like metalworking, so it was really scary to just get started on it, but once you started cutting it, I kind of remembered how unhappy I'd been looking at this messed up for so long, so it was really satisfying actually to cut off all those sharp bits that were just sticking off and get a cleaner cut that also, it looks less bad. Like, yeah, there is a fat hole in the car now, but it's not so crumpled around, it's just a straight cut. So the general goal for this repair is just extend the cuts more, and then you get the patch to fit that and you weld it. I think what I'm gonna first do actually now is fit the patch panel to get an idea of what that looks like. What I really wanna kind of finish up is cleaning the pieces that are clearly damaged. I mean, that needs to go, obviously, so I need to cut a little farther there, but I'm being very careful not to cut into that support at all. And this is that one spot where that inside support gets really close to it. So I've been really careful. I'm honestly kind of happy with the fact that I've been able to just keep the cuts to the outside. I'm pretty satisfied with that. So let's see if I can fit the panel and what it looks like. Okay, so that's how I'm gonna repair it. Okay, I don't know how I'm gonna like figure out where to make the cuts though. Oh, this fits nicely.
And this is right about the moment that I started to actually see the light at the end of the tunnel and understand how this repair is going to go. So after taking a closer look, I realized I can start cutting the patch a little to end right about here, just to make it a little easier to work with and slowly close in on the final shape that I'm going to cut out.
But the thing with doing that is I'm committing to it. I don't want to cut the patch more than I'll actually end up needing and then realize I cut off too many pieces that I need. So I'm trying to think it through like 3 times to make sure I definitely will not need that extra length whatsoever. It's just kind of scary to think through, but yeah. So I think my plan is I'm gonna cut it very roughly and conservatively to the size of what needs to be fixed. At least that way I can lay it on top, and then to make the exact cut of where they're gonna line up, I'm thinking, I feel like it's a little harder than I think because I don't know how deep I'm gonna be cutting, but to actually clamp the patch onto the car itself and make the cut through both at the same time. So that way I know both the cuts are identical and it leaves just the gap of that cutting disc, which should be enough to make a nice butt weld with.
And so I started to realize that the hardest part of this repair was going to be making sure that I don't ruin the patch panel. I can't really go back if I make a mistake. So every cut I make was really careful and calculated to try and protect the patch. And then I almost bent it by standing on it. So it was a very anxiety-driven repair, but I was slowly making progress and doing my best to think everything through 3 times before I made any cuts. so I continued making progress, cutting out the damage, thinking 3 times through if there was any way I could salvage a piece before I cut it out. And making sure I was never cutting too far outside of what I can fix with the patch panel itself. So it was pretty nerve-wracking.
So it's going pretty well, and I actually got a lot better progress than I thought done, but I kind of I've run into an unexpected issue. There is actually another piece of structure that's welded right around here. So it starts here and it goes off that way. And if I make the cut where I want to, which is well beyond that, I'd be cutting through 2 layers. I'd be cutting through this rear quarter and that inner support that I guess is spot welded right here. So I am not sure how to go about dealing with that. I have no clue. Man, this was going so well too. I was like, this might be much easier repair than I thought, and then ran into that. Okay. I might take a break from cutting and start working on the door, but yeah, I think I'm just gonna do some research on that. But in the meantime, I am pretty dang happy with that progress. It looks a little cleaner, and it feels a little less daunting because I've got rid of most of the messy parts. And here you can see that inner support fully exposed. Almost no cuts. I just nicked it here and there, and this is that dent I was saying. It's whatever. I can't do anything about it. But yeah, so here's that dent, and you can see I cleared all of this area outside of here without messing that up. That was what I was most worried about, but now the spot welded part is going to be a problem. But yeah, and then I'll figure that out later. But yeah, going well for not really knowing what I'm doing.
And yeah, I know I'm definitely making some mistakes here, and I don't know what they are yet, but I'm doing the best I can with the knowledge that I have right now, and I'm just trying to get this job done. So, being as careful as I can, I continued slowly cutting the patch to size and slowly making progress on the repair. And after some thinking, I decided that I couldn't really see a clear way to salvage this part of the wheelhouse. I decided to just cut it, and also clean up these cuts over here.
There's 2 pieces? Oh, fuck.
At this point, I was really starting to get more comfortable cutting into the car, so I was starting to make progress much more faster, which was really nice to see after this car sat damaged like this for several months. And so this is the progress that I finally made for the day. I didn't want to cut too much closer until I did a little bit more research on what the best technique would be to cut it exactly to size. But overall, I'm really pleased with the progress I made on day 1. I mean, I still have some research to do, like how I'm going to fix this wheelhouse and the little broken spot weld above it. So I'm going to take a break from this until I can do more research so I don't make too many cuts and cause any irreversible damage than I might have already done. And so with step 1 of that quarter panel repair done, with most of that damage cut out, I moved on to repairing the door and trying to replace it with one that I bought off Facebook Marketplace for $100.
So from what I understand, there's 4 steps to disconnecting this Miata door. First is to knock out this pin. Apparently you can knock it up and out. The second is to disconnect the wiring harness, which is underneath that black rubber cover over there. And then the third and fourth are to disconnect the top hinge, just unbolt it. And same thing with the bottom hinge down there. Now reaching those bolts and undoing that harness while it's all in this tight crevice over here is the part I am not looking forward to. And what also does help is that I have the replacement door here. Like for example, I couldn't understand how this connector actually attaches, but based on, I have this out of the car that I can look at, and it looks like there's essentially 4 pieces that connect. I think that's what actually holds it into the car. And then this green thing, I don't know how to undo it yet, but it unlatches the wire, the actual plug or the wires from it, as far as I understand. So I'm gonna see if I can kind of pull that rubber cover off and then reach these 4 pieces. Maybe I can knock out this pin first. Like I can barely even fit my hand here, so no clue how I'm gonna get to that connector.
And so as I began disconnecting the door, I started to brace myself for the possibility that this might be one of those things that looks like it'd be a quick fix, but just takes way too long because you get stuck on little things.
Yeah. So just for reference, kind of this bubbly shape on one end. That's the top, so I guess it doesn't fall through. So that's the top, and the other way is the bottom.
But luckily I started making progress pretty fast, and even though it was pretty hard to reach the cover of this wiring harness, I tried to use every tool as creatively as I could to try and finally get a grip on it to pull it off.
There we go. There, I got the top. I think ideally you remove this door with the fender off. It's so much more easier to reach in there. So I'm not sure if I can really even fully unclip it with the door in the way. So I'm considering just doing the hinges before I move back to the clip, so at least I can move the door a little out of the way. The only scary part is the door might start to fall.
So before I gave up on the wiring harness, I gave it a couple more tries and I was finally able to unclip it fully.
Yo!
And before I disconnect the hinges too much, I realized I need to support the end of the door so it doesn't fall when it comes off. And I realized my car is too low for some jack stands, so I just stuck a trash can under it for now.
Bottom hinge disconnected.
And before I disconnect the top hinge, I wanted to figure out how to disconnect this wiring harness so that I wouldn't risk having the door just fall and rip the wiring harness itself.
That little nib right there wants to lock into the top of here and not pull out. So what we have to do is push this whole thing down enough that it kind of gets out of the way and then you pull it out. The hard part is it has so much friction that you can't even tell if you've unlocked it because it's so hard to even pull. You can start maybe like putting a small screwdriver in here and carefully prying this up. Okay, good that I checked this now.
And although I couldn't yet disconnect the wiring harness while the door was on it, I wanted to make sure I knew how to disconnect it so I don't remove the door and then have it dangling just by a wiring harness. And with the top hinge finally disconnected, I slowly started to pull the door off of the car, which was kind of a crazy sight to see. I've never taken a major part off a car like this before. And I was able to disconnect that cable release really quickly, so I'm glad I looked into it beforehand and didn't get stuck there trying to hold the door upright and reach for some tools. But it was crazy to pull the door off and realize that I'd made some solid progress on this repair.
Oh my gosh. Oh my god. Oh my god. Hello. This is crazy.
And yeah, this isn't the hardest thing to do, but when you've never done something before, even if you know it's going to be easy, it still feels pretty daunting until you actually do it. So the relief of making progress, and that too without getting too stuck as I used to early on, was pretty huge. And of course, it was crazy to see my car look like an actual Jeep with no door. So it felt nice to pick up the new door and get started on trying to put that in. And my plan for this door is to repaint it at the same time I'll repaint the repaired quarter panel, and I'm also going to swap all the interior bits from the old door. So right now I just want to see if I can at least attach the door on it, verify that the electronics even work, so at least this car is drivable and not just sitting in my driveway with no door. And I was feeling pretty good, until I actually tried to operate the window.
Why aren't the windows moving? So, I really wanted to finish this up, but I realized there's a lot I need to assemble here. I mean, this stuff is kind of gone, this goo is too dry, and there's a lot of just connectors laying around. And I forgot, I need to grab the mirror off of that, the side mirror. So what I'm realizing is there's a lot of assembly I need to do with this new door that I kind of forgot about. And for that, I need to reference the old door. So I don't think I'm going to put this door on today because it's going to be such a pain to take off, and there's not really a good reason to do that right now. So I think I'm just going to leave the car without the door, and then I guess next video I probably get started on assembling the door and all the components and figuring out where I can maybe get some new goo, because this stuff is supposed to stick to this and I think create a watertight seal. It's not even sticking to my gloves. Oh, but either way, I did not expect to get this much work done. And it feels really good to not be kind of stuck at the same spot I've been, but actually getting a lot done. So yeah. Oh man, this door is so dirty.
So I think I actually need to do some more cleanup work and assembly on this door before I attach it.
Well, I guess that's it for this one. I'm gonna end this episode with a hole cut in my car and no door, which is quite weird.
So I didn't get all the work done that I wanted to, but I'm still really pleased with the amount of work I got done in the car, especially given that I don't really know what I'm doing. But everyone has to start somewhere, and I could not be more excited to finally see this car get back on the road. So thank you so much for watching. If you want to support this channel and help make future videos happen, you can do so by joining the Patreon in the description, and subscribe if you want to follow along.